So today for opening prayers, we only read page 3 in the Yala prayer book. So 3 times page 3, only page 3. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path.
Tangwe doji jaje rezon ro jinja medo doja bonjon ba serje lomba dabar jebege jaje jerbe jan zan zai dorjen janje delo naro da ma ba ma la jeje gambo ba ba mo re ba jawan ro gong ba ka jo lama nanje da jonje Dananda zara damje da lama laba laye jisu zan la zon yon den jan zun nga la wan den zhi don jin zhe bege le zo jin yi zo da zo jin jin din na du zun yi ba me ye zun ge gen da gen ma le de da damje la le dang a ye dang ve sa je wo da ge lo ju zun zhe bar zun je la de zo ju lam dan zhe bar zun je la de zo lan zhe ha se bar zun je la de Truba yi ju zun je bar zun je la de zo gang ge den je zhe bar jong ga ba me ba je ba me ba ta me ba wa me ba zhe Ta de de men du je me zhu ba nye je je den ba zu bu zun je ma nan je dan ba de la zhan zar de zhen je za ba la ma je je gu zon du je zun la da 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 ge je la pen da ge den ba dan zun je je dun jia jian ban zhe bar zun je la du zo da dren nga rang zo Papa Zambo Jupu Mulam Je Tsigdung Jachiran Jawa De Huba Gabri Tini Tan Di Jirtang Lega Kanda Sheba Ina Yang Je Gulong Zambu Toni Chidu Tini Lega Tsotsar Gewala Jurtuba La Nubat Chimbo Yuba Deri Chebaratu Ngarang Tsoke Namba Sanje ba ge chu ji du dene gulong la rale gulong de janjo ge sem si ban da la rale de jun sen la de ne dene ngarang so ge gulong ju go yo ba re jerdan sanje be chu de zo sem jwa tong ya thoni song yo go yo bare sem jwa kanda ba tong go yo shu na sem mi ji ba de sir ji bo lo jwa yang sam sam sem nyu mo ba yon lan jur du de chor de ne hirap yi shi jong wo la chur jwa de ne yin la dene samba ngimba la suba ji ndu te chur jurne samba zangbo la suba la jurwa tanda ji indu tanda ge yundin hibuto ne dene nyamni na na yabo yores
Today we continue with the commentary on the King of Aspiration Prayers for Excellent Conduct. The commentary is called the commentary that illuminates the vast, the profound meaning of the words in that prayer. So just generally, first, whatever activity we engage in, a good motivation is most important. So that is, we have to kind of transform our motivation into a virtuous motivation. Then it becomes more powerful. And especially since when we are practicing the Buddha Dharma, that practice really depends on our motivation. And that is the motivation of bodhicitta. That is the motivation that we have to be in when we practice the Dharma. And so when we practice the Buddha Dharma, therefore, what we mainly have to do is to transform our state of mind. So, for example, we transform anything negative in our mind into something positive, like sadness into happiness, or sometimes when we are controlled by afflictive emotions, then we transform that into the nature of wisdom, of awareness. Or if we have a negative thought, a state of mind, we transform that into a positive state of mind. So basically we should engage in practice on the basis of understanding the qualities of the Dharma.
Tene chirtang ta nge chirang nambala kato de ji de maji sene te lap thuku yo mare chini suso mangzu rawang re nini tene yang ji suso la di duba tan yin manda yo zang ta ji de ngen de jin de ma ji se ne lam na yang de zang ge pin to kala ka bore yin na yang ta ngarang ger ki chi ta nyam nyong si chen bo che yo mar de yin na da chung ze nyam nyong ke chan ne chung ze hu ba yin na chu la lob jong ji ko ban de kar chen bo ji rin do samsung jumsin pensun ji hu ba yin na cham sam ra we mulam do yong du teni ngarang ke sem la o ta nga ka tara mulam de dong ya ke dong khin ke ta sem ji ro nde mu pa cham rin do gam tro wa cham rin do gam teni de pa cham rin do gam yang na che sem ting ni ji ngun ne che pan dong khun dog da ma do sam yang rao su su ge loi ren ba de che ha ko yong wan rao jin cham cha yo de lob jong che ba ken de ji ri shas teni te ana yin ke ta gom ja ju de kar che tun chi yin ban de yang kar che se na yang pin to chi chong ji cha du teni ta gom se na chen bo che ji ke nyam lin se chen bo yo ma re di na ta ta par teni chu chu ro bo tham ji nyam de chu ro tham ji nyam de gom ja de ku yu ja bu khon da wo ji ri da kan da teni te so ke Devon rawo te tene ta molan do pa so ta nga sem de molan de yang sem ngune de nderi kha ndikal ne gdo san tene pa mi pa ro jun ti ne chung ze ro ta ban de yang gom ja a hi te gom ro te sa man ru tu ne tna bi ja de tin Devon rawo che tna chodum rawo chi du kantar je gom ja jun de ta lob jong chi jun de ni la tum de yo ban de tetso mogu bachi yinzang jina ba tanda chi nang tamna yabu yori sangko yos.
And so when I'm saying that we should practice in this way, actually, I can't really tell you in this way directly, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, because this is a country that is democratic and everybody is free to do and think as they wish. And then secondly, not only can I not tell you that because there supposedly is a democracy, but secondly also I cannot really tell you that because everyone is different. Everyone has different wishes, different like dispositions and so forth, things that they believe. And so if I just tell you that's exactly what you have to do, then if I leave it at that, then it would also be very difficult to be of any benefit. But just to maybe give a personal example from my own personal experience, although I do not have a lot of experience, but I have some experience in studying the Dharma. And so when we, for example, say it's important that we study the Dharma, then to give one example, a personal example about that. So that means, for example, when I'm reciting a prayer, then I'm looking at my mind while I'm reciting the prayer and really try to understand what state is my mind actually in when I'm reciting this prayer. So the mind that is supposedly doing the prayer, then I'm checking, is it just like an aspiration, or is it just kind of for fun, as joyful, or is it just out of some faith, or is it actually something that comes from deep within my mind? And so the ability to discern between these different levels of mind, different states of mind, is the result of having done some studying. So that's why it is important. And then also, for example, we say that practicing meditation is very meaningful and very important. And so also to give a personal example on that, even though I do not have so much experience with meditation, but we regularly meditate together. I meditate together with the Dharma friends. And so then when I meditate, I also can really see the result of having done some meditation, because I am again able to discern the state of my mind. Am I actually meditating? Am I actually being in a tranquil state? And so forth. So I know what kind of state of mind I am in when I'm meditating. And so this ability of discernment also is the result of having done some meditation. And so here, therefore, I can see that studying the Dharma and meditating, practicing the Dharma, actually has result. And there's no doubt about it. And because there's no doubt about it, that is why I just feel that it might be good if you would practice in this way.
Tene da ngarando ndala de ne ma hien do yande de zang ka kale khapo mari tingkyo yena yang ndala de ne ka markor ne chi hien du ngin ji yore ngin de kare resena jancho ke sem kun hlang to ne hie go yore nde hie ja go yore de ngin a cha ke yore la te le labo chega mari te ma te ga za kha kor na hie de badle tenis jancho ke sem kun lang ne tin hi tin bu to ni ma hie jin de ni chebar chimbo ji yu ba tenda chebar chimbo yu ba de ha ko to ne de ne ta je kun long zang bo ju ta ta khire tenda be de dong ko to ni Chirang namba nga gigin tabi chada yore, delati ngarang ka je kulong do ya ju ne, ta janjo ke sem la rewa ja na tenda je yongwan de tene ta chirang namba gigin tabi chada yore si. Tene chirang zo de chu simba bo tamje ge yang dene yang da zanyon de wala te sang kale khabo yo mare nyoni to du nyon ni madona yang monyo tanda chi chogre tela so bak tin kale khat pote zamare de yang chi nambala ngin je yore ngin de chu nin ba ka so kulong ju kulong de jang chok sang chi la char jerne ta ye be sim jin tham je ge don de de yang je de tham je de wa da de we jo da din pa chi do nge ta chu nin ke yus ta tna kulong de chu go yor de le la po je yo ma re de tna le la po mi pa je ngarang so ke ma je rang je ji cha do yore de ma je na ngarang so dong ha le tar tho go yo ma re dene 타입 심진 다제 동하다 동하고 저다 트러비치도 인 삼노지 땅와이나 데 삼노도 돈을 내바래 동하고 저 가래래 단진래 단진 때 빵와라 장초샘 곰 산촉 장초샘 곰 장초샘 히 냠리지 따데 돈이 동하고 저 단진 타하요 당에 추님반데요 심진 담제 देवा द देव जद दिमपि दि इन सामना दे तोल ने पारे देवा के के जत करे रिसना देने जांबा रे जेवा रे देने दे सोसो रंग ला yang जे जेवान थिम पि ना दे देवा यो बा yin de देने सिमजिन थाम जे जिंग छोंग रे अतेन दे तना कुल हन तो ने देने सीन जे का दु ना ति हिटिंग वा द का छिम बोरेस
And so now I'm sitting here and I'm teaching the Dharma, and that in itself, just to sit here and speak, in itself is not that difficult. But it actually does come with a responsibility. And that is that I am giving teachings with a motivation of bodhicitta. So just to speak might not be so difficult, but then with this responsibility of really having to do that with bodhicitta, that is all not so easy. So therefore I'm trying to cultivate such a motivation of bodhicitta and sustaining mindfulness of that. So there is a huge difference between just speaking about the Dharma, and actually doing that with a motivation of bodhicitta and mindfulness. And then also actually you, to whom I'm speaking, for this reason, because when I'm speaking, I'm trying to have this motivation and mindfulness. In this way, you actually become also my teachers. And because of you, I'm trying to change my motivation. And so that is my responsibility. And as for you, those who listen to the Dharma, just to listen to the Dharma, to listen to teachings is also not that difficult. And you're only listening to the Dharma because you want to listen. You don't have to listen if you don't want to. So listening alone is not so difficult. But also you have a responsibility actually. And that is when you're listening to the Dharma, you should also transform your motivation into one of bodhicitta. Thinking that I'm listening to the Dharma in order to bring about the happiness and the causes of happiness of limitless sentient beings. And that is also not so easy. And even though it is not easy, we really have no choice. Because if we do not cultivate that motivation, then we will not separate from suffering. So if you think that I'm listening to the Dharma, I'm practicing in order to separate all sentient beings, limitless sentient beings from suffering, that is really like a meaningful aspiration. And so what is the cause of suffering of all sentient beings? It is the self-grasping mind. The antidote to that is to practice, to cultivate bodhicitta, motivation of bodhicitta. That is the cause which leads to the separation from self-grasping. So therefore also when you're listening to the Dharma, you should have the motivation of listening to the Dharma for the the happiness, the benefit of all sentient beings, and then it really becomes meaningful. And the cause of happiness of all sentient beings is love, is kindness. So when you experience, when just the slightest love arises within you, then to that degree that love arises within you, you will experience some happiness. So therefore, it is very important to know about this responsibility and to be very mindful of that motivation when listening to the Dharma.
Yeah, thế là thế các trang để mà tuyên để hiểu được thế này hiểu được để mà giúp cho nó ngon mà thì rồi yon đồ yon mong làm được thế rồi mà ba mong làm rồi yon đồ yours để mà giúp cho nó mà để mà nhỉ ngã được rồi dan dare tang aran so ke da per na junshen da ba chilun sumba yinas dene junshen ke dare da junshen chilun sumba yina ngaran so ke junshen de la don ra shu yamen chungchan ra ke top ne te che ba yina den junshen de ngaran so le chur control chi ge maris control me ji bi chap de ko ngaran so le chur rev hing to ra te ge ris ngaran so ge hing dong go de hing to ma de bian de tom ne hing dong koran le pink yo re da no ke yo ris hing dong koran le no ke yo wa yin na ya hing dong ke ngaran so le control chi ge mari ngaran so le hing to te ge do dan de yin de nga yang teni yin ke chek zu bo teni dan de na yin ke nu gan da ji yong ba yin na ya teni nga tu so la pin to ba ben na hin dong da ji yong hyo san ne de mo lang ja go yo res.
So then we continue with the text, the commentary. We're still in the same section, which is to make prayers as we go about our daily activities. And so here an example is given of a tree. So if you throw a rock at a tree, or if you attack the tree with weapons, the tree will not get angry at you. Instead of being angry, the tree will even give you fruit. And then if you take that fruit and cut it up, so then is that good for the fruit, or does it hurt the fruit? Actually, it hurts the fruit really, but still the fruit doesn't get angry because you cut it up. But instead of getting angry, it offers itself to you. And so what this is to say here is that when others treat you with unkindness, maybe speak to you in an unkind way, or do anything else that hurts you, then you should make a prayer thinking, may it become just like this, like a giving tree.
Tene dana yige ngaranzo hingdong zon tong de tene de ge be da de zu kado da yeb da de ge tene ha chang ge ngaranzo mailan de zipo dana tene semla tene dewa te yoris de yin de da jang tene da zo chi hu lunga yi song ge ju ba tam je tene yi de wa da we journey de ton de pin to sho samna 나그톤의 몰람자고 요바래 데 다시 킹동당 더 소츠현의 자게 데네 단 잡래 데나 근소네시 베심진 탐제라 핀 토바마도 누지게 요마래 데인도 데네 나양 데이터베지 핀 통kin제 저효 누 미진kin제 던 저효 세네 몰람자고 요바래
And also when you look at a tree, then when you look at the tree color and the shape, it might look very beautiful to your eyes. So in this way, the tree can actually also give some joy, some happiness to your mind. So then when you see such a tree, then therefore you should pray, may I become just like that in all my activities of body, speech, and mind. May these activities bring benefit, may they be pleasant for others, and may it benefit them. So a tree, all the trees and the plants in the world actually, what they do is in this world only to bring benefit to sentient beings. Those trees and plants, they never cause any harm. So when you see the trees and plants, you should make a prayer, may I too become of such benefit to others. May I too not cause any harm or hurt toward others.
Nima nga pula yudu nga zo gum bane de tene lama mambo tene sacha chigla pegore pemne dala meto ndra mara meto gutsu da jiga dala meto name na zo mambo je chungge yore ti meto de ya chuban bune tene zambo ju moland sundu ne chuban pegore ti meto de ranjong ge meto ri sacha chigla jegere ti meto de dunga da pugunda wa zoptan ro de donc yore ro yore de ina ya da ra de so samno yang jar dang de ne ke da lama ge wi ni na ba ka den chimbo da sunam sa ya da je so so ke sendang de ne koryo gen zidok ni ndrewa zo wa de ne ndrewa de zangbu to nu zo wa jancho ku sem ku to nu zo wa la zo ba ka den chimbo ro ya sam sa da yin za de da ra marang zo ga je me to gang ji ning ji bo ji tong na ya ya san je len chu ban pu yang na ji churang me to pa ke jang su hie ne churang tong kin ke sim jin tam ji de ne nga yin de ji bo yong hyo nga churang tong de be ji bo chong song ka den che se da ra ngu su ke jang do hie tam na ya bo do ha de hi tin ya la ping ge wa
I remember when I was very young, when we were in Tibet, and so there was this time in spring where many lamas, many spiritual teachers came together in the monastery. So then they all went to this place where there were a lot of flowers. A lot of wild flowers were growing there. It was just the right time. It was springtime. And so when we were there in this meadow of flowers, those lamas were reciting this prayer for excellent conduct as an offering that they felt that they felt like making when seeing those beautiful flowers. And so at that time I was like a little child really, and so I recited along with them. But now when I look back at that, I really feel that these lamas actually were extremely kind, and what an opportunity to accumulate merit. Now when I see that, when I look back at that, I can really see that this is really a way and how they have connected their mind to the natural environment, their mind to the flowers. So whatever they see, the nature and the outer world, they were able to connect to it and then make such a prayer that is connected with bodhicitta. And so also now, therefore, when you see a beautiful flower, you should make such an offering of that to the Buddhas. And so for example, one other thing you can do is not just make a prayer and rejoice in that beautiful sight. You can even talk to the flower. You can say that, I was so happy to see you. I'm so happy to see you. You're so beautiful. And it makes me so happy to see you. May everyone else who will see you also be happy like me. Well, thank you for this meeting. So actually, if you would talk to a flower like that, it also will help your practice of mindfulness.
Gypsy malare ba sone chi rona nawa lamte chir chodok randur rolog yinso tande nawa lamte chirdang la mambo yorde ta tara gangno hyuba dan yinwenne de nawa tamje yi dong cha tanda ben ngarang zu chur khoyok ton chalin tomna sosu semkan la pimbo yorwa teni sosu semkan la pimba del tine Teta nyamdala teni yan chupa tang marjimba laso ba senkuton tang du teni suso ke nya tika namjir zenari rotang rolong do te janchuk sem chupa cha de yor tin zangpu chupa cha de yor zangpu chupa.
There's one quote by Milarepa. Milarepa said, when you go around, so in all your activities, you should take all appearances as the path. Practice with all appearances. This is the way to go about your daily life while self-liberating, naturally liberating the 6 sense consciousnesses. And so, as I mentioned before, it really applies to anything that you encounter in your daily life. For example, any appearance, anything that is beautiful, that is pleasing. And this is how you connect to your surroundings. And if you're able to do that, it will benefit your mind, your own practice. And also, you can use it as a way to make offerings and practice generosity and so on. And then everything you do, the way you express yourself to others and the way you go about your activities all become such excellent activities.
Ta pena ngaran zonde cho gan ramlan ro di tini cho de ma tene ma bam ro yore. Ta tikap su yang molan dem ne o ta cho chu man tune thanglo me ba karma karcha chegla tene yawa me patone rem ji man tune ma bam ro was de yin nga ke simjin thamje la pin par zum bu zung jun de ta chu churang ge jun yin de yong hyo chorang pe ngom sar chen bondo ten chorang ngal labza shu ji te song ka din che sam na ta te ta chi thapa yin na tene kantar nangsi thamchi mulang ko ngo lon jor tna yong ko yore ten nam jun che kanza che ma che ge zupo la sang ta na khorang ke pe na zupu ke cha he ni cha he jig len zi pa cha na te la de yi dong cha de la sam no tong ta ba yin na tene ngarang zo namju tene jazo golo samno pa zan cholo ton to ba de la pe pindo chembo yore ta ka gap so yang je samsang so so je ganza je la chapa hyuk chembo jien ta na yong do pa gap so ta dan ro gap so tene yang de ge je zan cha de la samno ton ya de tes ta nyom yo go ya cha ge yore ta de gap so ri ma do ta tu chu mang yo sa la tene yung da yung tin ni na ge yung tin de zo so so sem ke chal ling go yo sem de pe na do khab lin zo na ja khab lin ro ji na tene yingi yungdin lukpa chat zalin tab dana. Dana chena, tene mulam kan revan de chat yores.
Or sometimes when you come to a river, you're standing on a river banks, and you're looking at the river as how it flows uninterruptedly, a continuous stream of water. And when you see that, you can again talk to the river and make a prayer and think that, so just like you, the river, flow unceasingly, in a similar way may my benefit to others, to other sentient beings, be unceasing. And today you have taught me an amazing lesson. Thank you so much. So this is how you can pray when you see a river flowing. And so in this way, if you can practice in this way, then actually all encountering, everything you see, all appearances and everything that exists becomes really prayer by nature. Or for example, if you look at a person, if you think of one particular person, and you think about, for example, when you look at their body, and you take one thing that is very beautiful about them, and then you think about that, then your perspective about this whole person becomes positive. Just sometimes it might happen that maybe a very powerful attachment might arise, and then it is better to have the mind more in an equanimous state, but that is actually very, very rarely the case. Very rarely should we do that, just sometimes. For the most part, mostly, we should always think about the good qualities of others. And so then in that case, your mind becomes like a magnet, and that magnet pulls toward it all the positive qualities of the other person. So this is the result of having made prayers.
Ten ngaran su semkam hibde hiba de timder la la de yuri. Timder sti chi ta da tam sin ro yabo chi khin chingo yo den da ma re. Timder hiba chik ti lu tu du yo ba. Tu du yo ba na kan ra re. Pe na zi hin na dog cha yuri ming cha yuri. Den de zi hin ming cha jin jig long su je ba yin na de zang ke ko ne ba yo ma re. 다 코란단 드라와 요바 체데 요바게 데니 츠행 망보 서드럽지인데 데니 미인데 톱진 차네 아 다라 보그 미 마요서 드라 차도 요로와 츠행 코란 톡서 맨 니가 요르 아 츠행 라 도그 츠행 요르 미그 츠행 요로와 데 미그 츠행 도서 저 냠도 don데 데브저지인데 데니 코 톱친 뭐 차한 거도와 다들 팀들 시버다 미 탐지 팀들 차한 거 요로와 then tanainza ta mi maina timdari de kantar teni ngarang su semdang sulo ke ten jungwan de so timder kcha janjang ni drop de yoro de tana sam no tang yimba ha ko wa ji ha ko ne ha ko wa yin de la long ju tamna teni ngune ta ne ta be hirab de dimba hiba de cha de yoro is.
So the peace of our mind, a peaceful state of mind, is actually something that arises due to many things that are interdependent, due to interdependence. So this term interdependent or interdependent origination sometimes also is translated as auspicious. But it doesn't, here in this case, it doesn't just mean something that is just amazing or great, but it means that one thing depends on another thing. So interdependently related, things are interdependently related. So for example, there is different kind of trees. There is medicinal trees and there's poisonous trees. And if you just have one medicinal tree, then it's maybe not so potent. But when many medicinal trees are together, then it becomes very potent. So that is due to interdependence. Actually, all medicine is interdependence. Any medicine that we take is a substance consisting of many different parts. So it's all interdependent. And so that is what we have to understand, that everything that arises, everything that you perceive is a product of interdependent relations. So you should recognize it as such. And if you then are also able to enjoy it, then you really possess wisdom or intelligence.
Molam Jiong Molam Rodante Husimbari. The Nita Moa Shiva the Carres. That the Tonsi Gok Tony Sungodo. Tambo de Moving Mobo. The Nipa de Moving Itzek. Sumba de Move Gile. Yiba de Move Yewa. Tininga ba de lang ngov mingdun che yipcha ruba de tikba chimbu ngov ngando dumba de ngov garchi ran yin je ba de mix kan ngosor go ba de ngov tone sita ngwa la je ba chi yong ba dro ta te ta bu sin go ko ne che ge yore na inga da
ina 동네 지난 내가 말해.
동네 시바데 안텔 똑바요 바들 제바치. tendayan samare yin contender is a batam. Karne motul ta mix karne pen je. Mix karne te pat pen den det sinde tam mo. Det sumpol mo.
So this completes the chapter on the purpose of making prayers as we go about our activities, which was in the whole text the first point, and now is the second point, which is the teachings on dedication. And that is divided into 9 subdivisions, which are number 1. First is the essence of dedication. Number 2 is a certainty in dedication. Number 3 is the activity or like the function of dedication. Number 4 is the division of dedication. Number 5 is the deep meaning of that word, the term dedication. Number 6 is the vital points of the Mahayana dedication. Number 7 is the important nature of dedication. Number 8 is the so that is basically different kinds of dedications, how we dedicate at different occasions, like when we are alive or when one has died and so on. And then the 9th one is the like doubts that could arise during dedication.
Tene dan de ngo ngo sibandela ta ayang kepa namba ke yitzer mambo yoba ta so ta dom jam ne huna ta ngoji te kareresna gewa jing ho yong ko yorwa gewa jing ho ne ngu cha du gewa te ke ta jumde dawo te nde ta be jing yor hyo nde ta be ji yong hyo se ne ta ngo ne jumde te ta be ji yong nu ba ra ta dena ji cha de yore jing je na da dena sem ke te te yong hyo se de ba chang ke yong tu do ka ba mari sam san da ji yore te yong tu mari sam ba ka su 대두 되니 용 못하고 값이 요래 용 못하고 값 요래 근데 팀들 그 냉가데 마히버 값수 되니 용 못하고 값 차송하래 팀들 그다 냉가 마히 요란신 반다고 땅다 드나 존네 직대 제대 바이나 되니 용 못하봐 ngaran so ke rewa japse ro ma da lamsa te nenga no mahidu meong ba nenga tanda chang ko yoris 나 nenga da uji hina per nandera jamso chimbo na ge nya chimbo ji tikba ha jang payu ma chawo tikba nya zung jin do chawo je ge de ko party churn ji ni zong to ban do jamso ne chun tin to do dan de ko jamso lo yore di jamso na tin ji ge tikba de jamso no yong na jamso na ni hyo chunang lo yu ba yin do de ni korang la che mo do 그런 미 빠참으로 알아? 말이 특바데. 효기 같이 bombo 채널이 요는 그런 미 빠참으로. 아. 라면 같이 효기 요는 잠손나. 해고 다라트 특바 하장 차오래데. 해고 그냥 침보들은 tin더나. 다 데디 팀들은 좀송래. 그런이 팀들데. 다냐 침보도 저랑 그 사감토라 마야데 다히냐 tin제 특바된 tin라 특바 채널은 tin더 말이. Dedi ko dan timder manzom ra krani mare ori ta anda jen re sa hyo hajang da hyo da jubja hyo ri sun jo chorang ke nya zong chunang lo yora di nya tin to ko mare kan so hyo korang chok bang ne me ba chang ro ra de la ina tikba hajang chamo de chon yodu 된 천ang 그 냐침보데 되는 전팅도 요로와 전팅도도와 되니 양 디틱반 차오 데 란자지 냐침보데 사 감사 그 토로 야는 쭉 징팅라 되니 냐든 티라 냐데가랑 티라 양의 특바 체도 그래 양은 냐디 간한디 샤데 뭐그 위네 간단 팅도 그 말에 데디 팀들만 좀 바래 샤 감사 샤시 사 감포 가리야야나 냐데 가신 티는 전 티는 티는 되니 거 티도 말아 티 되니 냐 휴 첨보 여러분 아니 냐 지고 첨보 되니 다시 특반 처음에 되게 팅거나 티도 말아 양은 거 무게 원도지라 되나 다 팀들은 좋은 거지 되 난도 가래 효유스나 샘그 참아 칼로 저트그르 베스나 샘데 투그리 저를 당해 토야데 가레리스나 샘데 냐중제 그 특반 처음나 이리 차오티나 이리 파다데 샘즈데 데이터가 정아랑 좀 통화 말아봤다지 저들이 추 탐제 그 내당데 냐지 춘앙로 요바나 이 차도요래 팅고야도 춘앙로 요바나 네네 다데서 샘게 추 탐제를 갈로 저트고 요래스 nenga hima hige je ma je ke chebar mari da te nenga hima hige chebar no amdo je ne kable yang samja kable chimbo jana yang dumde me yo yo ro nenga hibe to ne
Billy, how do you call that thing that you catch the fish with?
net
Not a net.
net
No.
gubat
The string, you will fishing line. Yeah. Great. Thank you. I think that didn't use that word in many years.
Six about I know one words.
That's great.
One word.
So, So first is the essence of dedication. Essence of dedication. And so first of all, so there's also several quotes by great masters in there. First of all, dedication, what do we actually dedicate? We dedicate our virtuous actions. And when we dedicate them, then we can bring about a certain result. So we can we influence the result through our dedication prayers. So the dedication prayer gives a certain power to one's aspiration to be accomplished, to actually happen the way we aspire, the way we wish. So now maybe sometimes we just say, if we don't really understand the crucial points of dedication, then we might just casually want something and then think, may that happen. But then together with that wish for something to happen, there also is some kind of hesitation in the mind, and we think that, oh, that probably won't happen though, or it's not possible. And so that is when one doesn't understand the crucial point, the vital point of dedication. And that is to understand interdependence. So sometimes it seems that, of course, things don't always happen exactly the way we want them to happen, but often also because we don't understand the crucial point of dedication, which is the point of interdependent relations. So if one does understand the point of dedication, then it is like you're like catching a fish with a fish line. So, for example, if you're fishing on a lake, and you're throwing in the fish line, and then the fish line is very thin, very very subtle actually, and then it has this hook at the end, and that can catch the fish in the water, and then you can just pull the fish up through that line, which is very thin. Even though it's very thin, and even though the fish is very big, it can still pull the fish out of the water. If you use the wrong fish line, if you make a fish line out of paper, a rolled paper, then even though that might be thicker than the fish line, the paper will just dissolve in the water, and you will not be able to pull the fish out of the water. And then, and that's one point. And then after the fish is pulled out of the water, and for example, if the fish is not in the water, if it's on the surface out of the water, and let's imagine you try to catch the fish while the fish is not in water, so the fish is out in the dry on a rock, but somewhere far away, so you try to catch the fish with the fish line, then again it will be very difficult to get the fish because the fish is no longer in the water, and therefore the fish is much more heavy. So then you can't pull the fish toward you. So basically, if you want to have a fish, you need to know how to get it. And so that is interdependence. You need to have the right tool to get the fish. If you use the wrong tool, then you won't get the fish. So interdependence means that all the necessary criteria for something to happen come together. And these conditions mainly are within our mind. So then, again, coming back to this question of can we actually fulfill our aspirations? We can, because it is only our mind, how we direct our mind, understanding the crucial points of interdependence with the mind. And the mind is just like this thin fish rope. It's very small, and the mind is actually so subtle we cannot see it. And then all those things that we want to pull toward us, all those phenomena, are like the fish. And so if you have the right mind, or if you have the right fish rope, if you have the right mind, then you can pull draw anything toward you. But it all depends on whether or not you have understood that crucial point. So that is the only difference.
Ta kandar tsama timdari ba de tene lobjong chi jang ne tene remji ha koyong bare ma do ma jang na tene ha koya me bare wa ma jang na ha mo ba pen song chi ba ina dunkor na sung ko yor da dunkor na du jung ko na par du jung ko na ngarang zo tin naok ni na ni ma wok jon wa de ta nga cho kandar jewan ji tin da la ama ke ngar ni ma chi ni zo de na do ngarang zo na yor was ta na ni pa wok jo yo ba cha ha ko re ma do ni ma karin na wok kar re jo na wok ye ni ka du jo yu ni ka du jo to so nga zo lob jo ma je na hi ma da ta lob jo ta so la lob jo je ta na win du hi ndu ka re ha ko re per na pu ba ke chi de lo to to so na ke chi dang o tereng chi ni che ya chi som ri ya se pu ba chi mang bo na che ya che la mang bo yong jo yo re de sam na o ne wok jo dang to ni de ha ko yo re ta de tham je tim de ke ne de chi cha dang na o ne wok jo ya de wa ka re yo re se mo yo re de ko tim de ke den da re de le tin de ne yin da tereng chi che ya se hira ta do sa pa na ro hira yo ma re de zo chi gu na o ne wok jo dang sam re na o yo jing ni ma do wok mo jo wa de su sam re ni ga ne jo ya dang de la so ba ke nam ya yo re ta pen sung de ta re kan dar tim de de hi so wa ina de ne ta ngarang su nam ju na cha jing yi lam che re shi ban da yang tim de le to yong go rin tar to ndu sur jor to yong go yo re wa pin nu tham je pin ba le sur jor to ban da tim de le tra le de yo re
So everything is interdependent. And that is also something that we have to learn, because if we don't really understand that based on learning about it, then it is like this. There's this example given in the color chakra teachings. So it says there that we are breathing air through our two nostrils. So since we are born from the wombs of our mothers into this world, we all have a nose, and we breathe through the nose, so two nostrils. And we all know that we have some awareness of that we are breathing through our two nostrils. But what we don't really know is how we are breathing through our two nostrils, and when exactly are we breathing through the right nostril, and when exactly are we more breathing through the left nostril. If we don't learn about that, we won't know that. But actually, this is how Tibetan astrology works. When we look at calendars, then in the Tibetan calendar, sometimes it happens that one day is just left out. So you have like a first, and you don't have a second, and then you have like 2/3 or so. So sometimes a day is just left out in a Tibetan calendar. It's very, very common. And that has to do with the left and the right nostrils, how the air is flowing through the left and the right nostrils. And that's also interdependence. So how are the dates on a calendar related to which nostril we are breathing through? They're actually, there's a strong relation between them. Actually, before, the Tibetans, they wouldn't even like bother, those astrologers, right? They wouldn't even bother or like wonder what day of the month it is. They would just look at what nostril am I breathing through more. Is it the right one, or is it the left one, or is it both at the same time? And then based just on the flow of air through a particular nostril or both nostrils would help them understand where we are at astrologically. So that is because they have understood the interdependence of everything. And so if one understands the independence of everything, then one knows how to take all kinds of negative circumstances, sickness and so forth, how to use that as practice, how one brings it onto the path. And also one's ability to transform harm into benefit depends on one's knowledge of interdependence.
Tene nipa ngowo ngi tseksi, ta ngowo ngi tseksi, ta ngowo hien dik chechun rao de kandar song yore. Ligjarji ke de paranatas ngowo ngi tsek de ngowo de mengde. Ta kandar kare hyo yore sidu ndumba sidi ta semkuton ndo semji ndumba rwa yiji ndumba de tang. Tene tsek de jie dang kin dang du zo ge din main de ge tsek zer drop yong ge yore du zo nyam de zo yong ba ge top je yore di top de ge deni gewe zawa deni gewa kanyang lo wa he din so so ge du dun ju ya ge chi de deni pa ngo hi ba de pa jin bu dong da na wo ji re deni de la dine de ge che pin to ba dum de to ba je de da lo cho yong to ba den ra nan do res.
That's the first point, the essence of dedication. And then the second point is the defining characteristic of dedication. And first, the Sanskrit term for dedication is parinata, and its meaning is that it begins with an aspiration. There's an aspiration in the mind, so it begins in the mind. An aspiration in the mind leads to a word uttered with one's mouth, and that happens with one's tongue, and the tongue moving toward the palate, like the roof of the mouth. And through the movement of the tongue in the mouth, that creates, the movement of the tongue in the mouth creates like a concept, like a word. And then the prayer comes out, that dedication. So there's all these things coming together actually, which give power to what is being uttered, what is said. And what is being uttered is the dedication, where we dedicate the roots of virtue. And the power that comes about through dedication is that all one's wishes will become fulfilled. The benefit of others is brought about, so therefore it also becomes generosity.
Tene sumba ngowo jile si, ta ngowo jile le kan rawo kare chigi yore shudu. Tene geza chung chung la tene de geza chung chung jik drum ne te ya chimbo la jor taba. Tene geza nyung jik sa ba te mangbo la ya per taba. Tene gewa yun tong tong la seba de la tene ndrewe tene yun ringbo la pa per taba. Ta tela soba ke tene ngoa ke chile de te taba jiris.
And then the third point is the again a function of dedication or the activity. So what activity is performed, what happens when one dedicates. So it is said that if one dedicates, then even a very small virtue is transformed into a great virtue. And in terms of amount, measuring in terms of amount, a little virtue becomes a lot of results. And practicing virtue for a short period of time results in an experience for a very long time. So that is the kind of the activity performed, or what happens when one dedicates.
다 되는 그 게자 충어지 드럼니 침보로 줄바 시반데 아 페나 저랑 엄마는 베메 홍스 마네 아 살직 되나 대 뭐와 지용도 다대 심진 탐지를 홍어용도 다 저랑 그 심진 탐이 바 이긴도 마네 탐이 바 차려 마네 비용도 탐이 바 차려 카나니 엄마는 베메 홍스 다대 셈데 장초 그 셈, 뭐부 값수 장초 그 셈, 대용 용거를 인라 핀삼 그 삼노데. 대 핀삼 그 삼노데 칼라 파판다고 자노 요리스타 레라보 휴바이나. 판다고 자네. 판다고 자안데 다 장초 그 셈 코란 그 느바델라 되니 다배 삼제 메차바리도 되니 베나 ngaran so machi parchik jan ti part de ma chi kar la tro la ra okay tro la ra tro de ja tong chen ba tro cho da te part ji ke ti machine da de la ti ne ba yo de yin da ta ra de ne da ba jon ro yo ba les
So first, for example, is to transform a small virtue into a great virtue. For example, one small virtue is just to recite a single Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. But if you recite this mantra wishing for the benefit of all sentient beings, limitless sentient beings, and then because sentient beings are limitless, also your Mani mantra becomes limitless. The benefit becomes limitless. So with your mouth, you're reciting the Mani mantra, and in your mind, you dedicate with bodhicitta for the benefit of others. And that is multiplying the effect, because the power of bodhicitta in general is inconceivable. For example, it's like you're taking a picture of something in a computer, and then you put it into your computer, and then you're printing that picture. So it's just one picture actually on the screen, but you can, with a printing machine, you can produce countless printouts of that one picture.
tani ta de yin de tani yun tong tong le zhe de zhe yun ren bo min ba xi ban de jie da wei zhi xu ba yin na chorang ge de ge za wa de yun tong tong ji le ma de zhe yu ma re per na da rang rang zo sang dong de sang na da de ge sang zhe dong za yu song ren bo ji ge yang si song he nga zo la di sang zhe dong za de dang bo ko rang zhe de 대점 저저걸로 두추 주는 뭐 저당다 땅고 요래디나 대점 그 주는 뭐 땅고 요 말이 그런 저도 드랍진데 이나 다티 장제 동자데 산제 인다 냠데 되니 조르데지 되니 인데 다 머랍네 머랍 마 로니 로트나 왜네더니 단 잠벨은 사자 가사 가고 대다 찹도 받으나 용도와 단내 인도 대 가란 저 게와 두퉁은 나 드라이와 더 호아지인데 티 호아 되게 간다르 잠소는 추택 충충지 룩바이나 잠소 마세바 데세게 말이스 대 가란 저그 옴제 가난의 주나 디 옴시베 인도데 가난 그 웍데 라판다오지 잡데요레스 웍딩아 라판다오 잡데요 디 웍데 난쾌난케 롱나는 로온데 다 롱그 마찹스미사텔라 옴데가 마찹스미바 차노 공부부터는 시반다 대다오게 라팔마제 옴 정어서 칸 봐주디 팔로 자사데 칸난 거 웍딩아 팔로 자그라 ngaranso tarjo ta ne longgang ta ya de pinunde long de pa jan ro la bra de long pa jan ro zu de dara ben ngu ne chor ngaranso dana yong do pen na ndi chacha chu yong ge pa chacha ke chunang lo ne chacha dem de chön de ge chacha nang ge ge du tak da do du ya de long la mo do be jim se ge ya me ba ro 차차 구후즈는 직자 추차즈 되야요 롱차 메차 추차즈 저는 아마 구후대 오는 그 코로나나 라고 요래 라고 데 라고도 요바데 촌나 오마 자안데 yalin the chun and the cut tunes. They yindu, then long na to go, the young around Sulunda Pino or say at the Tarjota and so the Narwa. Then it take along the matchups and about charm, then take a pin. Long take a kawa poxet am yellow pin over your.
And then when you practice virtue for just a short time, then the results will be experienced for a long time. For example, sometimes you're practicing the smoke offering, and there is this smoke offering substance consisting of like 1,000 ingredients that Rinpoche always mentions. So this is like the main substance, and when it is after it is first produced, it is being consecrated, and so generally it is said that even that should be done for quite some time, but even if it is done abbreviated, not that long, so one spends some short time consecrating the smoke offering substances, and then one takes those substances, this substance, and mixes it with some other substances to make it more. Then the same original batch that was used can actually be sustained for many generations and many years and spreads around the world. So this is when one practices just has a small amount of virtue, and when one dedicates that, then it becomes like multiplied. For example, when one adds a drop of water into the ocean, then for as long as the ocean remains, the drop of water will also remain there. Or for example, when you're saying this word, the syllable Om, so this syllable Om comes out of your mouth. And what comes out of your mouth as Om is really wind. Like your breath as Om, as wind comes, the wind breath comes out as Om. And this wind that utters Om is like the camera that takes the picture, which then becomes multiplied as the Om breath dissipates into the air space. So that is like printing many times then. So first you take the picture and then it becomes multiplied, like printing many times. So then the Om wind goes out into, having taken that picture of Om by saying it, the Om wind goes out and dissipates into space and pervades wherever space pervades. So in this way, Om becomes pervasive. Or for example, it is said there is this, when you make tsatsas, which is this little figurines, like stupas and so on. When you make tsatsas with clay, you have this tsatsa mold. And it is said that when you just take this tsatsa mold and put it in water, and then you take it out of the water quickly, for a short time you can actually see the shape of that mold inside of the water. So it's similar to that. So there's an imprint that's kind of left there. And then wherever that water pervades, that this image also pervades. And that is also why, for example, it is said it's so beneficial to hang up prayer flags. It's because the wind blows through them and then takes them, like the meaning, the power of these prayer flags with it, and then brings benefit to anyone that is touched by this wind.
Then da sakje getsa samil jurba song. Then the karchimbo chadu yor. The kandari sedu. Maranzo sakje gewa hibande je pena namjun ta chan sayar tang tani korwa chutin korwa la so bande da tamje sakje geware. Tan de ngoa ge jen da ngoa jidu kapso sakje tarto ngosor chekdang jam sapa mi park to do ngosor ni yor di sami gdar do ngosor de khosor mikpa da tarwa se kandar tungba ni da da mi ba ge jisim bo to ngo yong du ta de gecha de namchi mathop sanje ji gomba mathop je ge yo mare te sami ge gewal George sami sin namyang kun zomta meba sanji chuju ko top sadu darong lomchu zobka da trubka ngola churn geza tin jorne dig june tin simjin tamje la ta kowa matong ko par de pinta yan de tanda cha de yore.
And the next point here is that dedication transforms contaminated virtue into uncontaminated virtue. And that's a very important point. So, for example, contaminated as in maybe better conceptual, so literal it's contaminated, but maybe better conceptual to unconceptual virtue. Conceptual virtue, for example, would be to do prostrations or to walk around a stupa, circumambulate a stupa, and so on. And then we seal that virtue with dedication. And so then when we transform this concept-bound dedication into an unconceptual, uncontaminated dedication, that is done when the mind is free from the three spheres, without a reference point of the three spheres of duality. So from within a state of emptiness and selflessness. And then if one dedicates in such a way, then this dedication, the virtues that one has accumulated, will never become exhausted through this dedication. Even when one attains enlightenment, the results from having practiced such virtue with such dedication will still continue on. They will never become exhausted. So, for example, how they continue on is that you attain the state of the Dharmakaya, and then through this virtue that was previously accumulated, then from the Dharmakaya arise the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya that then continue to act for the benefit of sentient beings for as long as samsara exists.
Da separ jurbe geza dene mezepa la bajurasi. Dan da tabi na perna sakje ji gewa mambo ya mata pacha de yor perna nge ti tab de ya le nda ngol che ya ba ina de chan sarwa ke chap cha de yorba chu kun jola chan sarwa ke chap cha de yore. Dan de danga ke dene ngoa ji indu di ngoa de la tine dene da di ngoa de dene ninje tang jamba la so ba kun lang de ngo yong du dene sem ko top je zam ji ba de chu ke dene driver de mine da kandar se ring kha ma ge za ji yin ya dene de ta ba ju ring bo la sing wa la so ba ke dana ke nu ba de ngoa la yo res.
Then there's the virtue that can become exhausted, to transform that into inexhaustible virtue through dedication. So, for example, there is a virtue that can become exhausted, meaning that it is impermanent. For example, when I am placing this book, this scripture on my crown, then that is like a representation of paying homage to the Dharma, or prostrating to the Dharma. And so then if that is dedicated with a motivation of compassion and love, then it becomes very powerful, depending on how powerful one's mind is. And then correspondingly, there will be a result. So if there is a virtue that can become exhausted, that can go like disappear at some point, then we can prolong its experience through the proper dedication.
Tene yang perna jimba ndaw je tang jimben rebe lomju rwa lomju chi de ta ngarang chi chupu ndaw chaya chi de jimba tang de wa ina dan de yang pa so so zong zipo tang tela so ba chi de yang chang hoa chi ayo re de hoa de nalan jura de hoa rang ka so tene te ta dun ba te bu to ne Tene yang samnin je ge zisim ba do ngondu da la chon jo ko yores. Da gar chimbo je ndare da nguma so so ge je Japan jon re da tela so ba yang na yin ge ku song ba. Yang na yin ge tro song ba la so ba. La tene ngarang zu sem de ge de zone tene sem la mandu ba hyu je yore da sem na la. De endu de ge hyu no ko yor so so la. Je wa sema la. Pardu ne kap so yang darong ti jot la sem cha ne ta ti ko che logic chi hyu yo re tarang ne jin ne ma che lu hyu logic hya cha po je yo re tene
Tanam masora.
ta tene de kandar ta yin ge tho so wa yin na re gu so wa yin na re ta so so chor ma tha ba tin ki cha du ta be ngene chang rong zong bo si ba de so so le ba sem hirap bi ju dong ngo wa ji go ngo 다 뭐가 제 야바이나 때 저런 게 짐바 땅와 지바 차송으로 되는 소소라 때 심차 이루위사 야미바 배야 뭐 찬도 그래
So when we dedicate our virtue, then the result is that there is something that we then enjoy as a result. So, for example, one could have an ordinary motivation thinking that I'm dedicating these roots of virtue or being generous in order to get rich, or in order to have a beautiful appearance and so on. And so then this dedication, this kind of motivation is transformed into an aspiration of love and compassion, so, which is important. So, for example, if you've had some wealth, and then you lose that wealth, maybe someone steals it from you or robs it from you. When that happens and you have lost everything, then you will feel very unhappy about that. So it will really have a very negative effect on your mind. And even after this life, when you're in the bardo, you will still have this attachment to your wealth, to these objects. And so about that, there is a very nice story, which I will tell some other time. So if you have lost your wealth, it's stolen or you lost it, and it is sure that you will not get it back, then even though you have lost it already, you can still then use your brain and do something smart, which is to dedicate that loss. And then actually it becomes an act of generosity and therefore will have a corresponding result.
tene ta yiba de ngob mingdong che khipcha so dan de gantar chetang ngo ke mingdong sidita karen ro cha de yor sina perna jimba je ina jimba je tongo samya samno de dang tongju ke jimba de dang tene ta pa tongsa ke yor de ta nyamdola ta tongsa ke yor de somri ti kaps tene ta soso ke de ngo ke pa jen dam ro de tene da ngo mingdong ro de res re da de re tene cherdang ne ta nasi se chen hoa de la ta hi gang le hwa na yin ke hoa hi ba da jimba hi ba de ne don da rawo ji la te sam manda wa se na re de ra ji re hoa se de pa ngu ya ba ji bo ma yin ba o nge churang le te tre gin si tene churang pi ton to ma to sa ya ke sta ka du hi ma yin ba nge churang le de tre gin de ke pi ji to par hyos tan de ke kulong te leng go yor ba ti kulong te ga ta top jin cha ro go yo za tene
And then next is the fourth subdivision, which is the a detailed explanation on the meaning of the word dedication. And so dedication also is related to generosity And so when you are practicing generosity, then first you have a wish to give, a mind that is being generous. And then secondly, there is the object of that you're giving when you're generous. And then third is the object or the recipient of your offering. And so then when these three are sealed with dedication, that is the meaning of the word dedication. So this term generosity and dedication, they are quite similar in meaning, but there is a difference. And that is, so when you when you're just giving something away, then you might just feel that I'm giving this to you, whether it benefits you or not. So this is not dedication. Dedication would be, I'm giving this to you, may it be of benefit to you. So there's a difference in the motivation.
Tene ta Jirdang Hoa ta ngarang zu geza kang drum na yang Hoa te nang ke yo pare. Tene Hoa tamche nang ke ta Hoa ta mulang ke jarpo ta te zambo ju mulang de cha de yores. Tene de ke ta nandong ha ko ju de karchim bore. Ngo go atsamle tene Hoa tang ta 나 피용 또 하마 바이나 되니 나랑 저 샘데 야 덤라고도 야 제토고요 말에 데 샘고 덤라고도 야 제마톱도 델레티면 레베티아체 나랑 좀 도바 쳔바제 용더 갈레카보요레 된다 준신티네 데 다란지 틴숭공게 나딘 토붕거양게 나한테 지모안들 닌틴주 소 닌틴 히베체니도안데 닌 시바데 문투네 시바동로와 띵 히바데 텔은 문네 그치 로섬 찍더 토니 되네다 데라베는 호고 요레 숨발 레스
로당 샘 찍더 로당 샘
다 책당 샘니 저제긴 사라 저당 로섬 시바데 로 히바데 코 요라스 자바 시비찬 zon거 요라 샘 히바데 담보고 꾼 롱부찬 제발 연구 요라 저당 로 샘도 지바레 동제 맹나 지레게 찬데
So when you in general, when we are practicing dedication, no matter what kind of virtue we are dedicating, of all different kinds of dedications, such as thought, this dedication, this prayer here, the king of aspirations is this prayer for excellent conduct, and therefore it's really important to understand its meaning well. So if one only dedicates without really understanding the benefit, the meaning of dedication, then one will not be able to develop a great mind power. And then when the mind power is not very strong, then it will be difficult to really bring about the result that really satisfies one's wishes. And so therefore there is, Chigden Sumgen said in one of the the songs of realization on the fivefold path of Mahamudra, on dedication, at the end of that song he says that apply yourself diligently or make effort in the practice of dedication. And so this term in Tibetan of applying oneself with effort is Nindin, and so it consists of those two syllables. Nin means, first one, Nin means has to do with something that is upheld with continuously, with stability. So something that is maintained continuously. That's the first part, the Nin, and then means to bring together the one's the mind and like the acting mind, or one can say the words and the mind. So there's different kinds of words for mind also in Tibetan. And so one is the mind which engages in activities, and then there is the mind that has a motivation, like the aspiring mind maybe. So you bring those two together. You bring the activity mind and the aspiring mind together into one. And that's the second syllable of ten. So ten together basically means to apply yourself with effort.
Teni ngoa ndala teni ne chngoa ta ne mai pngoa si kandar nandong kare shuna ndrop sipa ngoa chigdan ndrop si pngoa ni yore. Teni ta ndrop si pngoa te ta ngo na ya ndrop si pa jiri te perna ta robong kara robong la yo mari sere te robong kara ndongpa job je na 롱그라 링포 휴제 go simhola jab dewa nan rogu marwa ten drum si bong wa ta were fit job je na je korana tambo ra min de fit job je yong mara ko zanga che ge rong ran do la sna da fit job je ya bo la do gente fit job je change ta khosena kala khapone ta yama rubar gpa rubar yo de gpa ta za che de yong thap la rubar gpa zu ya zo ka ta da ta sadin je khosena no di chi de mola ja de no te mola ro kala khaporo
Then the next part here is so it literally says the dedication, kind of abiding dedication and non-abiding dedication. But what that really means is dedication that is possible to bring about a certain result, and dedication where it is impossible to bring about a certain result. So when we can pray for something that's impossible, but that is unlikely to happen. For example, if you're praying for an 18-foot long rabbit's horn, that's impossible. First of all, there's no rabbit's horns, and if someone would say there is one, it's probably not one that's 18 foot long. So that's impossible. Or for example, if you're praying for a turtle with a fur which is like a carpet. So you are not going to find a turtle that has carpet-like fur. So that kind of prayer is difficult to accomplish.
Ne jingwa shibate drop sipa kngwa re drop sipa kngwa ndala karenda bochi yoru hibaina ne ka ke dewa mambo che tene molan tan ngwa sene tene drop ko yoba chikte re ni ni sanje ji gongpang hibandare ta sanje ji gongpang de tene ngarang so geza drop geza de tene ngondu tene dekta sanje gongpang la sanji goma top toba na yong yo baris.
And the second one is the abiding dedication, or the dedication that is possible to accomplish. And so that in a temporary sense can just refer to any happy states that you're praying for, and then you're dedicating your virtues towards that end, and then it becomes accomplished. And also secondly is the dedication which is a prayer to attain enlightenment. So if you dedicate your roots of virtue to the attainment of enlightenment, then this is something that can be accomplished.
Ine da ngoa da mulan di kap samambo je ke lamsang che kanga che sanro go lamsang che gong go samne te tring ke yo bare tini te trin and drain de yo re kha he lamsang yong ko yo re ngene jumre ke chik sam ranzok se te yong ko yo re ga he tu chung gor go yo re jumsing kang la se na kazang ke ngen tini te asanga logi ji hyuen ba so la drba tin te yin de drba he chimbo yo na Ti draba de so pa se go yore. Tenin driver de so rimji so so tsar min go yore. Tilatin tu su gol go yore. Te ha go go ju karchim bore. Te jumre le yi chi tan jumre ga nam ya bu ha ma oda. O ta tren ngaran so ge je molam japai. Tata rang ke ke phi ma song san na. Tan de jumre ge nenga ma hi ba tin tin lo ta je bo ke ni kan do jumre hi gu zo jumsen te ro. Ngene sa no ya bo tan na. Ngaran so tata teren ke ya bo chong do de jung ko yu ba yin do so dawan ga hien hon da long ga hien hon da de la so ba gen driver de remji ji min go yo re. Jumre se da de ta ba ji ro jun de se ko remji ro go yo ro. Lamsa tak sin sama ta la yong tu go yo ma re. Ka hi ha chen jo bu cha ni ting ngaran so ga lamsang jong su sam sa yo. Dan ga hien jumre ton tra yong go yo re. Jumre shi ba da la rai ni yo re. Rai mang bo yo re. Lower de yong ba ta remji yong go wa.
So then, when we are dedicating or making all kinds of prayers, sometimes people make those prayers because they want some instant result. For example, they want that this prayer clears away their problems right away, right now. And they want something to happen right now. And so sometimes what we wish for happens right now, instantly, but sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes it happens right away. For example, it is said that karmic ripening is the instant, the momentary reflection, projection of one's own inner thoughts. But sometimes also it takes a long time. Yesterday I told that story about a Sangha, and that is when one's obscurations are very thick, very strong, then it will take some time for the results to become manifest. So that's really important to understand. If somebody doesn't really understand karma, doesn't really trust in karma, and they pray for something to happen and it doesn't happen right away, then there is a danger that they may cultivate a wrong view toward the Dharma. So that's why it's so important that one understands karma well. And then if you really think about it, if something is happening today, for example, then think back some months or some years in the past. What's happening now might be the result of a certain thing that you did some months or some years in the past. So the cause and effect happens gradually. The result ripens gradually, not always instantly. And sometimes it does ripen very quickly, and then when other people see that, they may think that, for him it happened right away. But it's not always the same. Karma ripens in various different ways. Sometimes it ripens right away, and sometimes it takes a longer time to ripen.
Pena nankana na da jokar za la so zakar mambo do to so la manda do. Pena karma khahe karma khorang sang lo tungsor mambo ngone ke cha chon ko mi pa cha cha wars. Ina wu de chor ti sa ko le to ya yong ne da rem ji sa lo tungsor jamne rem ji yong do ko yore sa. Teni pena nima ta we ne nima wu de teni garer karma ngar karcha jer so jiro te kan sa ko kalma karma je da chik thon karma khin kurzen e ko so karma nga do chi ko so phaje karma is da karma nga je chik lab so ya po te ngai tan tim drinkem do te sa ka man jo bo yong thoko yore sa ko ko nang khala hyar de bala chik ba ro ta de la so ba ko top che jong ne ba che jong teni 대양 소소라 제조고 소수 ngokar je changgo cha jin so chang yin to so la le ge yo.
For example, if you look into the sky at night, you see a lot of stars and all kinds of different stars at different distances. And some of those stars that you see in the sky have actually already completely disappeared many years ago, but their light reaches the earth just now, so that's why we still see them, although they're already gone. So this is an example of something taking just a longer time. On the other hand, we have the sun in the sky too, and the sunlight, and the sunlight doesn't take that long to reach Earth. Somebody told me how much it is, but I forgot exactly. It's like 5 to 8 minutes or so. But anyways, it's much quicker. It reaches the Earth very quickly in comparison to many of the distant stars. But what they have in common is that they both appear in the sky. It is just that one's light is maybe more powerful because it's closer, and one is more weak because it's more distant, so it takes a longer time to come. So in a similar way, depending on the various conditions that one possesses individually, the result will ripen in different ways.
Tene da ngwa de la tukjin da dongmi sen yi yoriyang na si yeba. Tukjin hiba den korsom mikba da jebu goni ngo yong ban de la tukjin sere. Tukjin hiba de dimban zimbi dinzing toni dinzing sin de yorida. Nga ke gewan de tok hiba da dan zimba de tok cha de yorwa. Min da tok ni ke nang tok da. Ko kareresina nga ge ngoji ge gezande nga ke si ta mo nganzi ti nga ke gezande ti chula ngo se ta chama ransin zin de yorwa de la gewa tukjin ngwa tukjin sere ngwa tungmi hi ba de korsam mik ba da travel go ne korsam mik ba tar si de ngwa por nga si ba ne ma de ngozi kungo bon de ma de ngobi yor ma de ba te ta bu chone ta tongba ni gang ne de ne ta ngo yong ban de la ngwa tungmi sere de yin ya ta ngwa tungmi chini ba je yong go na pacher dimi to ba ganza yin go dimi to ba ganza ser du lam la lob ne nyam se li ne de remji nyam le ji ne to ba ngon de jor de ban so la dimi to ba ganza ser wa yin ya de dang jin tun ba ke perna tambo je so so ran yin ji ma ro ba juma ta malam zam de ngo ji ku ngo bon de yan de zam ngo yor de zam nga ni ngo yong ba de
And then there's taron tinam la yorwa ti shiba no lara. Yeah. So in the same
nga ba na re nga ba re ti jin tru ba le nga ba re ngo yawas
So then we are in the fifth section, which is the divisions of dedication. There is, for example, there is a poisonous dedication and an unpoisoned dedication. So the poisonous dedication is when we dedicate, or like toxic dedication, when we dedicate with a mind that still clings to a reality, a true existence, mainly of the self. So you're thinking that I am practicing virtue, I did that. I did that for you. So there is the I, and then there is the you whom I'm doing something for, dedicating for. So there still is such a grasping or like a perception of a self in the mind. And then the non-poisonous dedication, that is one that is free of grasping at the three spheres. So the three spheres are I who am dedicating, the object of dedication, the virtue, and the recipient of my dedication. So these three are realized as inherently non-existent, and therefore this dedication occurs from within a state of emptiness. And it is said that if one really dedicates in this way, in an authentic way, without those three spheres, that is actually only really accomplished by someone who has realized the lack of inherent reality. And so someone who has already practiced on the path. then they have realized that things lack any inherent existence. But even if we have not entirely realized that yet, we can still follow this dedication by first of all understanding that things lack inherent existence, knowing that, and in this way, with this understanding, seeing things in a more illusory or dream-like way, and then dedicating from within such an understanding.
Tene ngoa tukjin shiba dra te ngusun juksa te karere huna drinsem dang ngaja la so ba te so ko wang ngo yondu tene de tukjin shiba de tene se khaze na dong ri sumba na yinge tene se ge ju mambo che thola dang tama so su lo kan la no ba la so ba yong ko yorwa dog dan de se suna de yindo Rinder dan rinsam da o tange gewat lapchin shuji sa yo ngajar gom tini telche ton ngwa chim bande tini ngajar den re ngwa cha yong za del pinto chimbo me bare pinto chimbo me betsala nu manga yores tini yang ngwa hi ba den rinsam ko ton ngwa chi ba dan rinsam ji ngwa chi ban da ngwa tukjin cha ro yores dan rinsam ngone si ba de chang rinsam hi ban da ngaran zo rinsam chipala rai rinsam ko sano la rai mambo yores tin rinsam ko sano ga he da che lapar de che yin che ge gewa te ta mu so nge ngo ge yin sa telen rinsam chi huna tin ngo wa de tukjin cha ro yores ta korang ge ten mu so nge tele ji se yara wa toni nge ngo ge yin sina ta ngo wa de mi na yi cha song ro wa korang ge gewa de ra chi ngo ndo se telen rinder ne nga ga te chi gen sam na tene te ge wa de tene mar ngwa de ngwa tukjin chang ro yo res
So then another dedication is the toxic kind of poisonous dedication, and so that is. It mainly arises from competitiveness and pride, which then makes one's dedication be like food mixed with poison. So it becomes spoiled. If you eat food mixed with poison, you become sick. So first, if you're, for example, if you're dedicating with pride, then you might think that I did something that's so great. You get very proud about it. If you're very proud about the great things that you did, then there's not so much benefit coming from that. There is definitely more harm than benefit. And then also to dedicate with a competitive mind is also toxic. And there's different kinds, different levels of competitiveness. But for example, some dedicate when they see somebody else dedicating, and then they think, oh, he's dedicating, so I'm also going to dedicate. And of course, it depends on your state of mind. If you rejoice in that person's dedication and then you dedicate too, then of course it becomes medicinal. But if you just do it because someone else does it and you want to compete with that person, then it becomes toxic dedication.
Ta tene ngoa de la ta yewa mambo yoba nangke ta ro ji dune shuba ina randong de ngoa de yindong de ngoa sin yu yore te tambo ta yindong ngoa de jin yong ge randong ngoa de la ta rani che che ren wa ne me pa panjur chewa ta tre le me ne ngoa ji yore ta te tso nang ge lap chi hu je ta ka re res na nges ta sanje je ko song to yong din tham je ganda to nyam slang wa la tin ne teni ta yi be sin jin tham je la pin to hyo nga pin thong kin ki do jor hyo sam ba to ngwa yi na yang rang dong to ngwa yin ba kan hi la rang dan de wa yo ba kan hi la dong le yin dong ko ngwa cha de yo ba ta na ji cha de yo re.
And so of the many different divisions of dedication, really it ultimately comes down to a twofold division, which is dedicating for one's own purpose and dedicating for the purpose of others. So about dedicating for the purpose of others, we come to that later. And when we dedicate for our own purpose, then we dedicate, for example, toward a long life, freedom from illness, good health, wealth, and things like that. And so when we dedicate, how we can transform this is that when we think that I've done this virtue, I've practiced the Buddha's body, speech, mind, the Buddha's qualities, and as a result of that, may I become someone who brings about benefit to limitless sentient beings. Then, although a part of the dedication is it is connected to your own purpose, but even though it is for your own purpose, in reality also the purpose of others is brought about.
Tene da deo de trukpa de tikpa chimpi ngo ngados. Gandos, gando, gonda. Te tere. Da tikpa chimbo ngo nenga da ne de ga yori sendu. Da tikpa chimbo ngo ande tene tang ngarang ke drop ye begeza inari rang se begeza inari ying drop begeza tamji jig do domde da mando dok senjing tamji ge dondo tene moyong go yores. 단디 가서 찍도 domzen데 tini nga che sonjo ga namba ndo chonang che si bare sonjo si de che pena pe khan ro che na tini ngor khang da na nyan ne che dra che de ba te ta maris tan de da ma yin ba de je chong kha ba chim bo ke song yo re gan so gare son se na dang bo ja chin tu ba mang de zal so tin da nan dong e hyong dam bo tu ba mambo chigo yuris tini pardo dezo ta chazoglo yuti ke tuba se yal tamche tini cha danga la soso ge danga la ha ko tone nyamni che ne ta dang tambo pardo danga la khago yuris danga de tama nyamsul ni ne nyamli la trago yuris tambo tu tini te danga la ha ko samba rwa samba dangwa la ko teni dangwa la ko tang den dare dangwa changtho de ke ba si chik dangwa de sun o ngal ti chung de yores mo ke lam do ma go su zo ju ja ya de dangwa de ya hyu de ta dangwa ta so la dangwa ta ne de pa yong ya de ya hyu de ba teni ta de nyamslin hi ba de o ta ngal chung te yo sa ri te jum chen te nge te mi pa chi go do o ngal yung tin te yo sa ri te yar je tong go do si ta tra to ne ta nyamni s tra we ta ta dom du kun jang tin ba je bi chi dong song yo du den ba pa tang yung go yo mes chen yang go yo ma re pa tang wa de da zang do mi le tang ya ba ma yin ba tin ba je bi hu chi dong tin ba je s de na ba san je chulong de je ja chen bo je yong ala sam tang na de ke yo ma re nang ba san je be chu tin ba le hyong kin tham je la de jang chok ge sem ning je lak sam zu ba de ta ba ji yu ba de ni thar san je ji ko phang to ba de na yong ho sam de ta ba rin na san je ge tin ba je na je go chu no yo res.
And then next we come to the sixth division here, which is the crucial points or the vital points of the Mahayana dedication. And so it is said here that one has to bring together one's own roots of virtue and all those roots of virtue accumulated by others, and dedicate all of these roots of virtue for all the sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. So bringing them all together into one, it's not like putting your money into the bank all into one account. It's not like that, but it has to do also with the right reflection. And that is explained by Lama and Jetson Kappa. And he said that first you should engage in extensive learning. So first you have to learn and understand the teachings. In the middle, or second, the instructions of the various older scriptures has to arise within your mind. So that means you have to understand these instructions and reflect upon them. And then in the end, he says, day and night at all times, practice these instructions. So when we have heard instructions, and so then, for example, through the instructions, we have learned what are my faults, what are my good qualities. So through these instructions, you recognize your own fault. Nobody else actually has to tell me, I know this is my fault. And actually, when that is recognized, then really the instructions have become vital instructions for you, the best instructions. So then you practice with that. So you recognize your fault and you want to get rid of that fault. And you recognize your qualities and you want to improve your qualities. And then that quote continues by Tsongkhapa, and he says, then in the end, and then all of these roots of virtue, you should dedicate them for the sake of all and the Buddha's teachings. So do not try to own or keep your roots of virtue, and you dedicate them. And so dedicating them, now if you just think that I'm dedicating those virtues so that the Buddha's teachings may become vast and extensive, that alone is not enough. But when you want the Buddha's teachings to become vast and extensive, then you should also think that, so then may there are many beings who enter the Buddha's teachings, and through the Buddha's teachings, may those beings cultivate bodhicitta and compassion, pure intention, patience, and ultimately enlightenment.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Then we dedicate in the yellow prayer book the first verse on page 11. By this merit may I attain omniscience, having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings. May I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Yeah. And then in the blue prayer book, which page was it? 27? 64. Page 20. Yeah. So page 64, verse number 21. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed.
Thank you very much, everyone.